Hello everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel, and in today's video I'm going to be doing something interesting. This is an idea I had a while back, and I think this could be very useful for those who aren't too familiar with the big list of free agents. So what I'm going to be doing is on PFF.com they have a list of the top 100 NFL free agents for the 2021 offseason. And I'm going to be skimming through that list, and if I see a name that the Jaguars should be in on, I will give a brief description of who that is and where they are predicted by PFF to go, and where I think the Jaguars could intervene and even potentially steal one of these guys from a different team. So to jump right into this, number 2 on their list is Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin. Now, Godwin's probably one of the best wide receivers in the 2021 offseason. He had a 90.7 overall PFF grade in 2019, according to PFF.com, and in 2020 he did take a slight step backwards, but in 2020 he still had a 131.9 passer rating when targeted, which shows you that it was a lack of targets more than anything, and he was still producing at a very high level. It was just a mixture of Tom Brady coming in, who we all know how Tom Brady likes to spread the ball around. He likes to target running backs, a lot of that stuff, tight ends, you name it. He's not going to double down and hit his wide receivers for every throw. And in 2019, Godwin had Jameis Winston, who between him and Mike Evans, they got majority of the targets. And in 2020, it wasn't that case. So take it as you will, but I still think Godwin is a very stout wide receiver. Even though his stats did slightly drop for the 2020 season, I don't think people should look into this too much. He was still a very good wide receiver in 2020, and throughout his first 4 years, he's honestly been one of the biggest steals for his value of a contract. I mean, you look at this, he's been just one of the most versatile wide receivers, and he's kind of been shadowed over by Mike Evans in Tampa Bay, I believe. Because I think Godwin's actually a legitimate wide receiver 1 on majority of teams, and it just so happened that he was stuck in the shadow of Mike Evans in Tampa. No hate on Mike Evans. He's probably close to a top 5 wide receiver in the league, if we're being honest. I think he's underrated as well. But to touch back on Godwin, Godwin plays inside and out. He lines up in the slot or outside. He runs just about any route in the route tree. He's got well above average hands. He doesn't drop many passes. He's got good yards after catch. I mean, you name it, Godwin has it. And this shows because PFF, their prediction for Godwin is a franchise tag by the Buccaneers, but they also list if the Buccaneers do sign him to a long-year deal, it could be somewhere in the ballpark of 5 years, $110 million. That's $22 million per year, with $65 million guaranteed and $45 million fully guaranteed at signing. Now that is a very large contract, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the largest contract for a wide receiver in NFL history, passing up Amari Cooper from a guaranteed money standpoint. For a per year standpoint, Hopkins does beat that out, but he did get only a 2-year deal. So from a guaranteed money standpoint, Godwin would beat that out with this contract. I think Godwin is a viable option for the Jaguars, but I don't see it as a realistic option, as Chark needs to be paid. You have Cole, Dede, Conley, all free agents that need either a re-signing or walking. I mean, would it be cool to get Godwin? Yes, but for that price tag, I think that's too steep for the Jaguars, honestly. I don't think that's that's anything. I don't believe that's a price tag that the Jags should touch at all. I think that's way too much, especially with Chark getting paid very soon. So to jump into the next guy, it's actually number 3 on their list. It's Allen Robinson. Now this is somebody that everybody in the Jags fan base is familiar with. We all know who Robinson is. He's probably one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. And to go into how underrated Allen Robinson is, you look at his QB play throughout his career, he's had Blake Bortles, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles. I mean, come on, like, who has he really had throwing him the ball? Robinson hasn't posted a PFF grade lower than 69 in his career, and he hasn't posted one lower than 75 since the 2018 season. He has excellent hands. He's got amazing contested catch skills. He hasn't dropped more than 3 passes in a season since he was with us, which is going back 3 or 4 years. During the 2020 regular season, Robinson graded out as an 88.4, which was 5th best in the league, and he's still only in that 27, 28-year-old range. So he still has a few years of prime left in him for sure. Now, I could see him going for a pretty large price tag, and PFF's prediction is actually with the Dolphins for 4 years, $84 million, which is $21 million per year, with $52.5 million guaranteed and then $35 million fully guaranteed at signing. Now, I truthfully believe that's a bit of an overpay by the Dolphins for Robinson, if I'm being honest. But they have the money to do it. So if Robinson can get a contract like that, he'd be crazy not to. I believe Robinson is more in that $16 to $18 million range, if I'm being honest. I think that's a more comfortable range for him. Because he's never, even though he has the potential to be a special wide receiver, he's never actually been it. It's all essentially hypotheticals. Now, do I think he could be a top 5 wide receiver if you give him a quarterback like Tua or Trevor Lawrence, one of these young guys who would rely on him and basically give him what he needs to be elite? Yes, I do believe he can. But to pay him a contract of that size, I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's a very high overpay for me, and I don't know how I feel about throwing that much money at a wide receiver when it's definitely not a top need on this team. So, funny enough, number 4 is then yet another wide receiver. So we're getting all the wide receivers out of the way. But it's Kenny Golladay of the Detroit Lions. So, Golladay is a guy that I like a lot. He is the definition of a deep ball wide receiver. He has the size and athleticism to get just about any jump ball and any contested catch there is. But what makes him special for me is the fact that Kenny is actually not a bad route runner. He has the ability to run intermediate and short routes even though he's predominantly used as a deep ball, jump ball, contested catch kind of guy. That's not his only skill set, and I think that will be shown once he goes somewhere else, assuming he does, which I believe he probably will. I don't think he's going to stay in Detroit. I really don't. Could they keep him? Yes, but I think the price tag that he's going to ask for is going to be way out of their price range. And, I mean, PFF's prediction for him is he goes to the Giants on a 4-year, $85 million deal, which is $21.25 million a year, $57.5 million guaranteed, and then $37.5 million fully guaranteed. This is an interesting contract for me. Do I believe Golladay is worth a contract like that? Honestly, yes. But his production doesn't really warrant that type of contract. That's a very large contract for someone who, I mean, Galladay's been good, but he's never been like a top 5 wide receiver, top 3 wide receiver. He's never been up there in that range. And to pay him as if he is one, like this suggests, I don't know. I mean, he could end up getting a price like that, but this is another one where I just don't want the Jags to get robbed. I really just don't want them to overpay. I can't stress that enough. If the Jaguars land up overpaying somebody, it's just such a mistake. We have so much cap space, and we can use it to our advantage for the future with rollover cap space. And I really don't think we should go out and spend close to $70 million this offseason. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if they could get one of these guys at a $15 to $18 million a year price range, I'd be a lot more open to it. But I really just don't believe that they're worth $20 million plus. I think that's just way too high. So, to touch on the next one, it's going to be number 6 on the list, who is safety Justin Simmons. Simmons is the Broncos safety who's really blossomed into probably one of the best safeties in the NFL in general. He's what you'd call a combo safety. He doesn't exactly play free safety or strong safety. He more or less does both. I really believe he's more of a strong safety, but he does have very impressive instincts when it comes to pass breakups. I mean, he had 11 pass breakups in 2019. He had 4 picks in 2019 as well. And, I mean, to go back to this, he's just he's overall one of the most well-rounded safeties in the league, in my opinion. I mean, he's going to get paid like it. I can't really tell you a hole in his game. He's well above average in the run support. He's well above average in coverage. I mean, there's really nothing that he doesn't do. And if the Jaguars could somehow pry him out of Denver, which I don't see happening, I don't see him leaving Denver. They're going to pay him whatever money he wants, honestly. He's pretty much, I mean, he's the reason their defense isn't atrocious at this point, in my opinion, besides Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, who even they've been going in the wrong direction, if I'm being honest, from a production standpoint. I mean, Simmons has been the one key piece on that defense that's really held it down. And to go along with that, PFF kind of agrees with me. They say the Broncos will sign him back for 5 years, $82.5 million, which is $16.5 million a year, with $45 million guaranteed and then $22.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. I can kind of agree with these numbers. Those are about the numbers that a safety's going for in today's league, especially one of his caliber. I don't know if I would go much above that asking price if I'm the Jaguars. That's about where you'd want to pay him. If I'm the Jags, I'd more or less match that offer and basically say, do you want to come somewhere where we're getting Trevor Lawrence, we're building something special, or do you want to stay in Denver? I don't know what he would do in that situation. I mean, only time will tell, but I don't see him leaving Broncos, honestly. Could he? Yes, but if they agree to pay him like PFF believes they will, I don't see him leaving. So to go on to a next guy, let's move a little bit down the list here. Tight end Hunter Henry is a good one to look at number 10. So Henry has been one of the best tight ends in football when healthy, but that's where the problem comes in for him. He really is never healthy. Henry has the size to where he could be a 3-down tight end. He's a good blocker. He's got good route running skills. He's got good hands. I mean, he did tear his ACL in 2018, which did slow him down a lot. But I love him as a player. I just don't know if we want to sign an injury-prone tight end to a big contract. It's kind of risky to me. Do we need a tight end? Yes. But to go after one that's had a lot of injury concerns and who's probably going to get a decently sized payday, I don't know if I like the fit for this one. He's probably going to be the most talented, quote-unquote, tight end in the free agency, but I don't know if he's the best simply off of availability is your best ability, and that's something Hunter Henry really isn't. He's almost never available within the past couple seasons. So PFF predicts him to re-sign with the Chargers for 4 years, $48 million. That's $12 million per year, $23.5 million total guaranteed, and then $16.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's about the right numbers for him, truthfully. I mean, he is one of the better tight ends in the league when healthy. It's just a matter of him being healthy. If he does sign a contract in that range, I think it could be a good contract for him and a good contract for whoever signs him to it, assuming he stays healthy. I mean, it's a big question. I don't know. He's one of those guys where I like his talent, but I don't like signing injury-prone players. It's just such a sketchy thing for me. I mean, so many teams get burnt by that. They sign an injury-prone guy to some big deal off of potential, and so many times they land up just not getting any value out of that contract, and I just don't want the Jaguars to do that. Get players that are going to contribute to this team for the future, and just there's no reason to just throw money at anybody. We should really be looking into who we want and why we want them. So to move farther down the list, there was one guy who a lot of people are in on, and it's Panthers tackle Taylor Moton. Now, Moton is probably one of the best right tackles in the league. He's one of the best pass blocking right tackles in the league, and he was in the 90th percentile, which is very good in true pass sets since 2018. As a run blocker, he is good, but he's more of a zone running type of scheme for the right tackle position. And I don't know if Urban Meyer's going to be doing that. I honestly can't speak for Urban, but I don't think Moten would fit our needs. A lot of people have talked to me about him signing with us and then moving him to left tackle, and I don't know if I like that. I don't, because his best position is right tackle, and he is probably one of the best right tackles in the league for his age especially. But I just don't think we should go out, spend all this money on him, and then move his position. So he's going to be changing schemes as well as changing position in a brand new setting. That just screams not a good idea to me. I do think that he's a viable option for the Jaguars. It would just take a lot of stuff happening, which, I mean, we could realistically move on from Khan, kick Jawan Taylor to right guard, sign somebody like Taylor Moten, make him the right tackle to just hold down that side, make huge lanes in the passing game, just let Trevor do what he does, go out and draft a left tackle, and kind of let Norwell help the left tackle as much as he can, since it would be a rookie left tackle. I just don't know if I agree with the idea of signing Moten and then moving him position-wise. I don't know. Could I see it happening? Yes, it does make sense. But it's a lot more difficult than people understand to just flip sides like that, especially when you're going to a new team. If he was doing it in Carolina, it would be one thing. Overall, PFF has him re-signing with the Panthers for 5 years, $82.5 million, which is $16.5 million a year, $45 million total guaranteed at signing, and $30 million fully guaranteed. PFF predicts the Panthers to sign Moten to a 5-year, $82.5 million deal, which is $16.5 million per year, with $45 million total guaranteed at signing, and then $30 million fully guaranteed at signing. So ultimately, I don't think Moten's going to leave Carolina anyways. It'd be stupid of Carolina to let one of the best right tackles in football just walk for nothing. That's a guy that I do like, but I really don't think he's going to go that way. So to move on down the list a little bit, at number 15 is safety Marcus Williams. Since entering the league in 2017, he's ranked near the top of the league in pretty much every category for safeties. According to PFF, Williams has had a coverage grade that ranks in the 90th percentile every year to go along with one of the highest rated forcing completions. Now, everybody's going to say, okay, he's a good pass protector, but what makes Williams one of, in my opinion, best safeties in the league is he's also a solid run defender, and he actually grades out above average against the run, and he plays the free safety position. So, you add Marcus Williams into our secondary, it could make a lot of sense, because he'd give us a great coverage safety at the free safety position, but we won't lose anything in the run stopping department. This, to me, makes a lot of sense. And to go along with this, PFF actually predicts us to sign Marcus Williams for 4 years, $57 million, $14.25 million a year, $30 million total guaranteed, and then $18.5 fully guaranteed at signing. That's actually a very reasonable deal for him. And it gets him in Jacksonville for at least 4 seasons, which to me makes too much sense. I mean, he's still a very young safety as well. He came into the league relatively young. I believe he's only 24 to 25 at this time. He's not one of those safeties that came into the league at like 23. I mean, Marcus Williams is definitely got his prime ahead of him. And that signing, for me, just makes way too much sense. So to go down the list a little bit more, here's another one that interests me a good bit. His name is Leonard Williams. He's a defensive lineman for the Giants. According to PFF, they say he's one of the surest bets in his class out of a consistency range, which I do kind of agree with that. run defense is what his strength is, as he ranks in the 86th percentile in PFF run defense grade since entering the league, according to PFF. And he comes in as a B and C gap defender, and our biggest hole right now is probably the C gap, in my opinion. So he would fill that up perfectly. He is an average pass rusher, but he did have 13 sacks this season. But according to PFF, they believe that it was mainly cleanup sacks, and they say he's actually yet to break a 72 grade for his career for a season, according to PFF. But even accounting for this, Williams is still probably one of the best D linemen on this market, and he will get paid accordingly. He's one of the best run defenders in this market, which is something we definitely need. And he is still an average pass rusher. And pass rush is not something we're going to be needing in the future. We're going to need run defense more than anything. With Clavon Chason, who will improve. Josh Allen, we already know what he's going to bring. I mean, we have pass rushers around them, where if we add somebody like Leonard Williams, he could come in and give us maybe 7 to 8 sacks a year. But more importantly, he gives us that consistent run defense. Now, according to PFF, they believe the Panthers will actually sign Williams for a 4-year, $80 million deal, which is $20 million a year, for $47.5 million total guaranteed, and then $32.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. That contract makes a lot of sense to me for him. That's about the ballpark, I'd say. I actually think he could get closer to like a 5-year, $100 million if he really holds out and goes for it. I think a team would fold and give that to him truthfully, and honestly, that team wouldn't be making a mistake. I really believe Williams was just stuck in a very bad situation in New York with the Jets. And then once going to the Giants, which funny enough are another New York team, he actually showed everybody that hey, I can do this. I'm one of the best defensive linemen in this league, and I'm going to show you it. And he did. I mean, he had one of the best years out of a defensive lineman this year. I mean, let's be honest. He was one of the best. So to go down the list a little bit more, here's another safety that I think the Jaguars could look into. I don't know if he would come to Jacksonville, however. I mean, he's a good fit because he is a very good pass coverage, and his name is John Johnson. He's from the Rams. Now, with his first couple seasons, he was probably, honestly, one of the best safeties in the game. But he did have an injury-plagued 2019 season. But when John Johnson's healthy, he's probably a top 10 safety. I mean, he's one of the best coverage safeties in the league. He had an 85.6 coverage grade during the regular season, and this marks the third time in 4 seasons he was at an 85 grade or above, which is 85 or above is pretty elite for PFF standards. People need to understand, it's hard to get in the 80 plus when you're talking about PFF. And to jump into more of the contracts, they believe the Rams will actually re-sign Johnson, which I personally don't agree with. I don't think they have the money to keep him first off. But to add to that, I don't think they really need to keep him anyway. They have a couple decent safeties in Terrell Burgess and then Taylor Rapp, which, I mean, do they really need to go out and spend money on John Johnson? No. But according to PFF, they believe John Johnson will stay in LA for 4 years to $52 million, which is $13 million a year, $25 million guaranteed, and then $16.5 fully guaranteed at signing. Now, that contract makes a good bit of sense for Johnson. I think it's actually a little low. I think he should get around the same as Marcus Williams, if not even a little bit more, if we're being honest. I mean, I would almost grade John Johnson slightly above him from a talent standpoint. I think PFF is just factoring in the fact that Johnson missed most of the 2019 season, where Marcus Williams didn't. And as I said earlier, availability is the best ability. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to why they have him graded above. But from a talent standpoint, I would definitely say John Johnson is on the same level as Marcus Williams. And if we do indeed miss out on Marcus Williams, I think John Johnson would be a very, very good option for the Jaguars to look at. So to go down the list a little bit more, right at number 31, here's a good one. It's tight end Jonnu Smith from Tennessee. So PFF says right here, Smith's calling card in the NFL has been his work after the catch, where he has averaged 6.8 yards after the catch per reception over his career. Out of a tight end, that's honestly, that's out of this world. I can't even fathom like how important that would be to an offense of our standard. Because if you look at our offense, our biggest weakness has almost always been tight end. And you add in a tight end who can make something happen after the catch like Jonnu Smith can, it could make a lot of sense. And I think Smith will be a very hot commodity come this offseason, because I think he hasn't reached his full potential in Tennessee. I really don't. I think Tennessee has been honestly just kind of underutilizing him. I mean, his career high in targets is just 63. Like, that's craziness. I mean, that's just not high at all. There's some tight ends like Travis Kelce, George Kittle, all these guys are getting 100 plus targets a year. And Jonnu Smith, who's one of the better receiving tight ends, in my opinion at least, in the game, is only getting a 60? Like, come on. So if you give him a more prominent role that fits his skill set, I think that Smith could be a 65 catch, 750 yard type tight end while being an absolute weapon in the red zone. So they, funny enough, actually have us signing him for a 4-year, $38 million deal, which is $9.5 million a year, for $20.5 million total guaranteed and $15 million fully guaranteed at signing. I'm actually a very big fan of this contract because him not making $10 million a year is actually, in my opinion, a steal. I mean, the way tight ends are growing in today's league, you need a very good tight end, and Jonnu Smith is going to be a very good tight end if he gets out of Tennessee. Nothing against Tennessee, I just don't think they utilize him as well as they should, which, I mean, to each team their own. I don't really know much about their offense more than a couple games that we play them, truthfully. I really believe Smith could fit very well with us. The one knock on him, however, is he's not really a great blocker. But over the years, according to PFF, they've said he's actually improved gradually with blocking. So, I mean, even if he's serviceable blocking, I'm not really too worried about it. We aren't really a power run team anymore, so I'm not too concerned with not having a true blocking tight end anymore. It's not a big commodity in today's NFL. Now, to move to 33, this is a guy I actually made a post about, funny enough. And his name is Alejandro Villanueva. So, PFF right here at the top says there's immense value in solid mid-tier offensive linemen, and that's exactly what Villanueva has been throughout his career. That sentence right there is exactly why I made a post about him. Villanueva is not your top 5 left tackle in the NFL, but he does his job. He's not an elite left tackle. He's not an elite tackle. Don't get the wrong idea. But, I mean, he's one of those guys that you want. I mean, NFL teams have to understand this. You cannot have bad offensive tackles in today's NFL with the way defensive ends and outside linebackers are. They are freaks of nature, and they will absolutely kill your quarterback. You need somebody you can rely on that outside. With a guard or a center, you can get away with an average center or an average guard, but you need somebody solid on the outside. And that's what Villanueva brings. He doesn't grade out as anything special, but he's one of those guys who he's in the middle of the pack, and he'll come in and he'll give you consistent tackle play. And that's something that I really think the Jaguars need. They don't need to take a risk and go try to get a top 5 left tackle who can land up busting in the draft. Use the draft prospects on a weapon of sorts for Trevor to give him more options, and then go get somebody like Villanueva who will give you a solid tackle who will do his job. Is he going to stop every top pass rusher in the league every single down? Probably not. But there's such a value in the NFL for mid-level offensive linemen, and that's exactly why I made the post about Villanueva. And right here, PFF has him going to the Chargers for 3 years, $45 million, which is $15 million per year, which is a little bit under the price that I said. I mean, it's in the same ballpark. That's about right for him. For $30 million guaranteed and then $20 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's a very honestly good contract for him, in my opinion. I think that's right about where he should be. But I don't know if that's where he'll go. He could realistically fit anywhere. If he does land up in Chargers, it could make a lot of sense. But to move on to the next guy, it's going to be Marvin Jones Jr., who I've also made a post about, funny enough. So Marvin Jones spent his last couple years in Detroit as the wide receiver 2, and he's been honestly pretty underrated in my opinion. He is turning 31 years old, so he's kind of past his prime a little bit. But make no mistake, Jones has very good hands. He's very good after the catch. He's good at jump balls. I mean, he could come in and be a very, very good wide receiver 3 for us after Chark and Chenault. And what I like most about him is he won't break the bank. He will cost about half of what some of these other top receivers would, which would allow us to either A, save money, or B, use that money to go elsewhere. So right here, PFF predicts him to go to the Browns, funny enough, for 3 years, $27 million, which is $9 million per year. It's about where I have him gauged. That's about right for him. I said 325. So, I mean, take it as you will. That's around the same area, with 16.5 guaranteed and 12.5 guaranteed at signing. So that's right about where I'd want to see him go. I mean, do I think he could get a little bit more? Maybe. But I also think Marvin Jones is at a point in his career where he wants to go somewhere where it's almost a good fit for him. And I believe Jacksonville has to be at the top of his list, especially considering we got his offensive coordinator now. I mean, our offensive coordinator is very familiar with him, and he even said something about Twitter about us and all that. Not about us specifically, but about Dable. Moving on to the next guy, it's tight end Gerald Everett from LA. He's an athletic tight end who honestly is very good, but I just don't know if he's I don't know how to take him, truthfully. Now, do I think he's going to stay in LA? Almost definitely not. Just the role he has there, he's probably not going to want to stay there even if they try to re-sign him. He is a very high upside guy, which is something that I like about him, because he's very athletic and he has very good size, and in the right system, he could end up being a very legit tight end 1. But there's very little to show to back that narrative up, which is what makes me a little bit scared of him. And PFF predicts him to go to the Bengals for 3 years, $15 million, which is $5 million a year. And honestly, for a tight end like that, for a contract like that, I mean, I would give him 3 years, $18 million, just to get him out of Cincinnati and bring him to Jacksonville. I mean, hell, that's a very good contract for his style and his value in today's league. I mean, he fits the mold of what is a hot commodity at the tight end position, which is a seam runner, very athletic, can move down the field, can make something happen after the catch, and can break some tackles and make a big play out of nothing. That's where tight end is going in the NFL. It's going away from that blocking tight end where you run power football. It's not like that anymore. And Gerald Everett is a perfect example of where the league is going. And I think he could be definitely a breakout candidate, assuming he goes to the right situation. But it will take him going to the right situation, like I said, and that's all up to him, truthfully. I really don't know where he's going to be eyeing to go. I hope he picks the right area, but, I mean, only time will tell. Now, the next guy is somebody that I like a lot. His name is Trey Hendrickson from New Orleans. Now, in his first 3 years, he was kind of just a reserve player. Didn't really do too much, but everybody knew he had the stuff to be good. He just didn't get the shot. until this year. Now, all of a sudden, he had double-digit sacks this year, and I believe was top 10 in sacks in the entire league. And he came relatively out of nowhere, honestly. He probably improved his drafts or his free agent stock the most out of anybody in the top 100, in my opinion. And even PFF says that he probably made himself the most money. Now, do I take this in consideration that he's a kind of what you'd call a one-year wonder a little bit? Yes. I am taking that in consideration, but if you look at his PFF grades, which have always been above average, and you look at realistically his snap counts from previous seasons, he never really had a true shot to show what he had. Which makes me believe that I actually think Hendrickson could be a very good player. And he's another one of those guys who, he's not going to come in and be a star on your team, but he'll give you mid-level pass rush and mid-level run defense. And he'll basically just give you, I don't know how to word this, he'll give you a good player, not great. And sometimes you need a good player, not great. So they have him actually signing with the Bills, which I think is a good fit, for 4 years, $45 million, which is $11.25 million a year, for $25 million guaranteed and $20 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's about where I'd put him. I mean, I think in that $11 million a year annually range is a good range for him. If I'm the Jaguars, I'd actually see if I could get him for like 4 years, $50 million, something around that range. Because I think he's a very good player to have. But my one concern with him, though, is I don't know if he has the pure size to play that inside in a 3-4. So it would definitely come down to if we believe he can or not, whether we sign him. Because if we stay to a 4-3, Chason and Allen are our defensive ends of the future, and signing Henderson doesn't make much sense. But if we switch to a 3-4 and make Allen and Chason outside linebackers, then you add in Trey Hendrickson and Davon Hamilton and guys like this, now you're looking at something that could be a very, very underrated defensive line. But it all comes down to if the Jaguars truly believe he could fit in that role, and I don't know if he could, because he is in that 265, 270 pound range. I mean, it's enough, but you want more in that 280, 290 range when you're talking about interior D linemen at least. And to move on to the next guy, we're going to be looking at Malik Hooker, who was the Indianapolis safety. He's had a lot of injury concerns, and he lost his 2020 season to a torn Achilles. He's one of those guys where you just sign him as a prove-it deal, and I could see the Jaguars doing that. PFF has him signing with the 49ers on a 1-year, $2 million deal, which, I mean, if that's the type of deal he's looking for, if I'm the Jaguars, I go in and say, hey, like, we'll offer you 2 years, $6 million. I mean, see what he's got. See, at worst, he's a depth piece. Like, let's be honest. I mean, come on. He's not bad by any stand. But ultimately, I don't really see the Jags going after him. I just think he's a good person to have on the list as a lower-end guy. He's a low-risk, high-reward type situation. If he does get healthy, he could definitely be a starting-level safety. It's just a matter of him getting healthy and getting his career back on track. But hopefully he does. And to move on to the next guy, it's going to be our final one that we're going to talk about, and he sits at 99 on their list. And his name is Sheldon Rankins. Rankins is kind of overlooked in my opinion. He's only 27 years old, turning 28. And he had high-level play back in 2018. But he's had a good level of injury concerns, which, I mean, it happens, unfortunately. Let's be honest. Everybody gets hurt sometimes. It's not something to really write a prospect off about. I mean, if we could get somebody like Rankins in as a veteran D-line, I'd be very open to it. And actually, PFF has him signing with us on a 2-year, $14.5 million deal, which is $7.25 million a year, with $8 million guaranteed and $5.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. So I actually agree with PF. I actually agree with PFF on this one. I think Rankins is a very low end guy that we should be looking at, and I believe that he could fit very well with us. But it's all up to Rankins if he believes that. I mean, if he wants to go to a contender and go be a rotational guy somewhere like that, so be it. But if he wants to sign with a team that's building something and kind of ride it out a little bit and be that veteran guy, then it would be a very smart move for the Jaguars to get somebody like him in the building. But without further ado, I'm going to wrap up this video. So if you are still here, thank you for listening. And I appreciate every single one of you who is still here listening. I do put a good bit of time into these videos, and I do it all for you guys, truthfully. And I had a lot of fun making this one, actually, because it was something I wanted to go over. And there is a few guys I did leave out, but I mainly left out guys who weren't exactly realistic options for us. So if you see somebody on this list that you like, just because I didn't mention them doesn't mean they aren't on the Jaguars' radar, so don't take it that way. Don't get scared like, oh, are we not going after this guy, or this and that. It's just my personal opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion on this type of stuff, especially when it comes to sports. I mean, sports can go any direction. But back to the point, just thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like so more people can see it. If you are new, make sure to subscribe if you are a Jaguars fan, because I will be posting plenty of more content. And as always, peace out, Duval.